Oh, hello everyone. Time for episode 3, I guess, of this day art vlog that we've got going on.
Hello everyone, what's up?
Trying a different angle today, a little different production quality, so hopefully you guys will like that.
Show you a little bit of the studio this time instead of just staring at our wall the whole time.
Yeah. So if it's the first one you're tuning into, just a quick introduction. I'm Henry Thurlow.
My name is Arthell Isom.
And both of us have lived in Japan for over 10 years now and work in the anime industry. I'm an animator and a layout artist, and Arthell is?
I'm a background artist and art director.
The first thing I ever worked on at all that was handed on my desk and I had to draw was the first season, I think episode 2 of Gundam Build Fighters, the first season. And then the first thing I ever got credited for was a few months after that, the Pokemon Origin special. There was like a TV special with 4 episodes, and that one I was credited on. What was the first stuff that you worked on?
The first series I worked on was Triple X Holic, and I was credited on that as well. Yeah.
So ever since those times, we've been in the anime industry.
Yeah, I think we worked on it.
And now we have this studio, Shtajio, and we're a production studio. So we've produced pilot films and music videos, etc., etc. Sturge Hill Simpson Sound and Fury on Netflix now is the kind of big thing that we worked on up to this point. So yeah, and then we also help out with other productions, One Piece, Tokyo Ghoul, etc. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, some of the recent anime we've worked on. So episode 3 here, the video so far haven't gotten a ton of views. I want more views, guys. Come on, share these things. Share these things, these things. But a few hundred. We got a few hundred on each one. Not terrible for a start. And there is a lot of questions and stuff in the comment section. So most of the questions seem to be related to animation production or suggestions from artists. Like if I wanted to crack in, how would I go about that? How did you crack in?
Yeah.
People probably want to know, if they're an independent artist right now, if they're a college student, like how do I get to work on anime? So as always, I think I'll rant for a little while and then I'll kick it over to you and let you take it from there. So for me personally, I have my own story to tell, about how I came to Japan and navigated through. How much that still applies today, I'm not 100% sure though, but I'll go into that in a second. What I would suggest to new artists is, one thing that I didn't do early on was in my sketchbook, connect characters and backgrounds. For people who are interested in layouts or storyboarding in the West or animating and doing Ganga layouts and key animation here in the East, the animator really needs to merge the background and the characters together. They're handed a blank piece of paper after some rough storyboards, and it's like, take these storyboards and now you lay out everything. Here's the perspective, here's the background, here's the characters sitting in the background, here's what they're doing, here's all the keyframes. And
because I guess that is the meaning of layout in Japan, right?
Yeah.
So what layout is composition. It's just another word for composition. So what that means is where the character is in relation to the environment. The animator is in charge of setting that up. So you don't have to draw a detailed environment, but you do need to have an idea of space and
you need to be able to fit characters into the world. And that's something I very specifically didn't do in the West, and it really screwed me for when I came out here. So I worked in New York for years before coming out to Japan. I worked on Kesha's My Love Is Your Drug music video, the MGMT Kids music video, Super Jail, season 1, and some other productions, game productions and things like that. But I was always in the West, handed a background or maybe even handed the first keyframe, like something to hold the scene together. And now it's like, move the character all around, right? And so I always just focused in my sketchbook, like, draw the character nicely, move them around, things like that. And then when I came out here, they wanted to see my portfolio, and I would show them the animation reel of stuff that I'd done, but they'd be like, well, this isn't Japanese anime. Where's your Japanese anime? And I'd be like, well, I only have experience in the West, but I can do it because I'm really, I'm a go-getter, and I'll work as long and hard of hours as you need me to work, and I'm really dedicated. And they're like, well, but there's no anime. I need to see that you can draw anime characters fully sitting in space. And so I had to kind of start from scratch and redo my whole portfolio. time and time again. Like redoing my portfolio once got me an interview at another place, and then the interview still didn't go well, and then I redid it again and again and again and again until I was good enough to get in. But if you are starting out and you are just focusing early on really fitting characters into space, even if they're not detailed, that's the best thing you can do. I have a lot more to say, but for now, just as far as technique goes, the kind of stuff I was saying, what suggestions do you have for people that want to get into background art?
Well, if you want to be a background artist, I think similar to character design, composition, layout is really important. Understanding space, structure, but there's a bit more focus on environment and perspective. So to be a background artist, you have to be able to draw essentially anything, really. Not only buildings, but of course vehicles and nature and objects. Like sometimes you'll have. It's interesting because, and I think that is something that I didn't know when I was in the States. Like background artists, our job is to be able to paint anything with any level of detail. So for example, if you paint a room, you don't want to just, like, a lot of people tend to just paint like a 1 point perspective, like room, that's like this little square box and you have like a table in there. But in animation, like, you don't always have just a wide camera view, right? So you're either going to have, like, if you're using I don't know, like an 8mm lens or 50mm lens, so then you're going to like either have a really wide shot or like a really, really close-up shot, a medium shot or something like that. And you have to be able to draw that. So if you draw a room, then you draw a door, and then maybe you're just drawing the doorknob. So being able to draw objects and things carefully and with attention to detail to do that, I think that's important. So so just being able to be able to draw, right, and understand perspective for 2-point, 3-point, 4-point, 5-point, 1-point perspective. And then just being able to draw objects. So if someone says, hey, draw me a window, not only just like a square with like, a cross in the middle, but actually how does this window work? So understanding, and then that's the next thing, understanding how objects in the real world work. So, okay, if you have to paint a door, the door isn't just like this piece of wood with a doorknob on it, right? It's like it has hinges, there's a frame, it's connected. Like, how is it connected? Because that is what you will be required to draw and paint through. Like, you're not going to paint the actual, like, wood and here's this is this, but you need to be able to hint at these things. But so the only way to hint at it in your artwork is to understand how it works, and then that way you then would to do it kind of like in your own impressionistic way, but being able to do that. So I think that's really important for background artists. So just going out there, having a sketchbook, drawing what you see all the time, drawing all the time. I always think that background artists have to be a little bit more technically proficient than the character animators, than the character artists, because the character artists, they're just drawing people all the time. So, once you get the muscles and the bones down, you're kind of good to go, right? You can draw people doing anything. But environment and background is a little bit different because you don't know what kind of background. You could be drawing the interior of a ship one day and a house another day, and now you're drawing like a field in the middle, like, just, and it's a mountain somewhere. So like you have to have a really broad sense, a broad ability of what you can draw. So,
very cool. So this episode might go a little long, not sure, but I also wanted to, because those are some pretty bare bones suggestions we gave. I mean, they're good, right? And at the end of the day, the reason you probably get the same suggestions from everyone is because they're true, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone probably says similar stuff to, you need to be able to draw anything from any angle and different textures, etc. And you should be able to know perspective and fit characters in space. But the reason everyone gives the same suggestions is because that's true. No matter where you want to work, the same kind of set of skills are necessary. But that being said, if you want to work in Japanese anime and you're not a Japanese person who speaks Japanese, you're living on the other side of the planet, how do you go about that? And so here's my quick, very super quick version of how I did it, and the kind of list of things that were necessary to accomplish before actually getting into the Japanese anime industry. But then at the end of it, I'm going to share some of my opinions about if that's still true or not. So the way that I went about it was, like, first of all, you kind of just need to get to Japan. If you're not living in Japan, this is true for me. Later on, I'll go into if this is still right relevant. But for me, if I'm not in Japan, how can I expect to get a job in Japan? I can't just email them and expect them to send me files and do stuff, especially 10 years ago, right? Now that might not be the case. But if you're actually in Japan and you speak the language and you've got a visa ready to go to work in your industry, and you've got the good portfolio that we were talking about, and you've got patience and willingness to work in this industry, before you get into the industry, recognize the payment is really tough. The hours are really tough. You might not get credited for everything, even after hours and hours of working on it. If you have the willingness to still work the way they want you to work, and you are where the studios are, and you're speaking the language the studios are speaking, and you have a portfolio good enough to enter, once you have all of those things, and that's a long, hard list that could take years to get ready for. It might take years alone just to learn the language enough so that you're confident enough to walk into a Japanese anime studio and then interview fully in Japanese. It was for me. But once you have all of those things together, then maybe, just maybe, you can get in on the very, very bottom, right? You get in and they're like, well, look at this foreigner who put in all this work on all of these categories. It's not even just one category, it's a ton of categories. That's so much effort. And they say that they recognize the payment and the work hours, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's so much effort, I'm going to give them a chance, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so with me, that was the case, and I cracked in at the very bottom, and I worked as in-between animator, a dogamon, for 2 years, and they earn almost nothing, and their work hours are morning till night. But I slowly worked on that, and the first few months were a nightmare. I could do a whole future podcast or a vlog on that, right? But it was worth it because I got the same super ultra rough hard training that all Japanese animators here get, right? Like being forced to just work under certain conditions, being told, no, redo it, and you're not getting paid even one time until it's finally good. So if it takes you 3 days to finish the one page, then you get paid for one page after 3 days. Do it again. But that's not just me, it was everyone in the room, right? And so that super harsh training as an in-between animator slowly got me to the point to build up to then eventually I could crack into key animation, right? And then just you slowly move up through the ranks as you get those skills and as you put in time and effort. What I was going to say about my feelings about how things are now, I don't know if that's truly the case for everyone anymore, and it concerns me for me, and it also concerns me for the newbies, to be honest. It concerns me for the newbies because while I have seen people online, they jump straight to Genga, let's say, right? There's a lot of people now that, like, I guess the communication barrier isn't as hard as it used to be. Maybe they can just email certain studios now. It seems like on Twitter, people are saying that's doable. Mm-hmm. If they jump right to that step, if they're a prodigy in art, I get how they could get the job because their character...
you're proficient.
Yeah, if they're really, really, really good just naturally without having to go through those years of training, then I understand that. However, those years of truly understanding the inner workings of the industry, what needs to be written on the timesheet, how this works, why keyframe animation should be set up in certain ways to not burden the in-between animator. If you don't go through those years of being an in-between animator, my concern is these newbies who are super talented, like they're prodigies above me even, right? I needed those years to get as good as I am now. If they could just jump to that step, that's amazing. But without those years of training, there's certain things that are being missed out on. And also the industry kind of misses out on having a good in-between animator for a few years, right? Everyone just wants to jump right to these high positions, and I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about it for me on a personal level because, what we've done is very rare, right? Coming all the way to Japan and then working in Japan. And I always felt like that's a really unique story that we can tell and mean something. And of course, I still hope it is. But if everything we went through is almost meaningless now, like there's no reason for me to write a book about, you'll need to move to Japan first and because it no longer applies, it's concerning for me.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know if we have to be concerned about it, because of course industry and things always change.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why we do what we do, right? So you're always going to have the people who have to kind of, you always have, I don't know, the pioneers, right? And I guess that's the meaning of the pioneers. We get out there, we try to make the road easier, like because Henry and I and other foreigners who've come out here and who've worked and kind of took that long hard road, it's actually made it easier for you guys to get jobs out here.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of course that wasn't our goal, right? Like,
I can't wait to help other people in the future.
But that became
it is true.
a byproduct of what we did, and I'm actually happy that is the case, right? Like this is a little bit off topic, but you hear this a lot. Like when you go to another country, and especially if you're a foreigner or you're an immigrant into that country, now you're essentially like a diplomat for the country that you came from, for the place that you came from. And that was what we were essentially, right? Like, so then, not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but now when we worked in this industry and they already said, oh, okay, these guys, like foreigners working here is not such a burden on our industry. They're actually hard workers just like us. So they're willing to give artists a chance now. And then now with technology and things, it's made communication easier, right? You have Google Translate, and I think, of course, the schools in America are amazing. They're amazing art schools there, and now you have YouTube and all this stuff that can help you. Like, we have our vlogs like here, which we tell you, and other people tell you what you should do. There's ways to practice. So I think that you can actually, because of that, like Henry said, you can work in the industry now without actually having to be here, right? But and then that's a great thing too. I think that the most important thing is not skipping the actually being a good artist. So because they're still going to look at your portfolio. So you can't just say, oh, I want to work in the anime, and I want to work in the anime industry, but I'm not a good artist yet, because they won't hire you. That is the one thing that we can guarantee you. No one will teach you how to be a good artist here, because now because that is the difference between if you're a freelance artist. Like, the definition of freelance artist means that you're good enough so that you don't have to be working under structure. So that is super important. So like, what sometimes we'll have all these people who want to be freelance artists. Hey, I'm working in the industry, but then they're not good. So, and then that actually makes it worse for everyone else, because then it makes it so that, actually I'm not going to hire any more freelance artists anymore, because they're not good enough, right? And then every time we send the work out, or these other companies out here send the work out, we have to essentially redo everything that you sent back to us.
It is true, on a you guys want to know some insider stuff, right? So on a personal note, like, we get lots of messages. Hey, I'm not living in Japan, but I want to help out. Do you have a job for me, right? And we always do look at the portfolios, but we are definitely strict now. You know what I mean? Because in the past, we got some of those, and we were like, hey, let's give someone a chance, right? They're not the best, but let's maybe give them a chance. And then it didn't work out very well, and that hurts the overall production process. So if you're going to apply and hey guys, I really want to work with JR, like, we'll always check your portfolio, and we're not against that. We're ready to do that, if the portfolio is right. But we are going to be pretty harsh, because you have to be. You have to be.
And I think that's a kind of a good point to end. I think
okay,
it's kind of long, and so we always say that with what Henry just said, right? Our studio's saying is "Shtajio ga daiji," right? The foundation is important, so you have to have a really strong base for where if you want to enter any industry, if you want to work at Pixar or Disney or any place, your portfolio, your craft, your ability to draw is important. So "Shtajio ga daiji," and see you next time.
See you next time.